All right. Hey, this is Dan. Welcome in, everybody, to our Monday Mentor session. I look forward to these. I won't always be the one doing them. We've got lots of talent out there that we've got lined up to do these. But the first couple weeks here, I just thought it'd be a delight to connect with everybody, see who's listening in, and ask questions or answer questions directly. So I'm always happy to fill in. Not a lack of content at all. As we know, it's not just a matter of creating content. It's a matter of creating community, but this is how we do that. This is how we foster community, by having these live chats where you really can just ask questions as we go along. Now, I laid out a topic for today, and like last week and the week before, I don't intend to just teach for 48 minutes. I tend to present a concept that we can talk about and look at together, and then we'll go from there. Now, so the topic for today is how to build a business with only 15 hours a week. Brian, are you able to show? I can share my screen here if we need to. I can do it like that, but I want to pull up this layout that I have as I kind of talk through it. So let me pull that up. And okay, now hopefully you can see the screen that I hope you're seeing. Geez, Zoom has changed their technology a little bit here. Amy, are you seeing the building a business with only 15 hours a week screen?
Yes, sir. You're good to go.
Good. Thank you. All right. So this is what I want to talk about here for a little bit, is how to build a business with only 15 hours a week. Now, lots of you are currently employed, and we validate that. We honor that. A lot of people will continue to be employed. One of the guys I'm going to be interviewing for my podcast this next week is Patrick McGinnis, who wrote the book 10% Entrepreneur. And he's interviewed a whole lot of people who love having a regular job, but they have a little idea that they want to promote, something they want to do on the side. And a lot of times very successfully, but they like the idea of being kind of having their feet in both camps. So there's nothing wrong with that. But as I work with coaches, entrepreneurs, online people, a lot of times they're having to create a transition where you can't just quit your job and go do something else full time, even if you want to do that ultimately. That's how do you create that transition? So I'm going to talk about how to do that where you spend only 15 hours a week. The critical thing is that you spend those hours in 4 different areas, not just one. So if we look at how I've divided these, how I've split these down here, I suggest you use the 15 hours divided as follows. 3 of those hours, reading, studying, gather new knowledge, or about 20% of the time that you have available. I'll go through all of these, and then I'll back up and talk about them individually. 5 of the 15 hours, or a little more than 33%, creating content. That may be working on a book, a course, your coaching packages, creating what it is that you're going to be offering on an ongoing basis. 4 hours a week then working directly with clients. That would be about 27%. And then the remaining 3 hours marketing your efforts to build your brand and reputation. That will keep a business moving forward, and you can have massive progress in 90 days. Now, a lot of times in working with people, they're asking, how long is it going to take until I can make a full transition? And of course, what I tell them is, we want it to happen between 90 and 180 days. So between 3 and 6 months. If it really is something you want to develop, you ought to be able to develop it enough in that period of time so you can make a full transition. If you've been working on something on the side for 2 years and are creating $1,000 a month, then you have to look at that realistically and say, is this just going to remain a hobby, a little sideline thing? Or do I really want this to be something bigger? And if I devoted all of my time to it, could I in fact grow it so that it would duplicate or surpass my current income? Not a lot of right and wrong, good or bad in this. This is a very individualized path. You get to choose. But if you in fact spend 15 hours in these 4 areas, then I think you can make massive progress in moving that along. Now, there are 2 areas in here that people often get trapped in. 2 places where they kind of get stuck. One is the first one where they spend not 3 hours of the 15, but 15 hours just gathering new information that they want to get. I see that happen again and again and again. We have a lady who's in our coaching mastery program where we help coaches establish themselves, get off and running very quickly in a profitable business. She came out of a corporate setting, was a very competent lady, was used to making $125,000 a year, very competent. And in the first 6 months of building her coaching business, she had a beautiful website. She had updated her LinkedIn profile. She had a lot of Facebook things that were going out. She was tweeting. She was doing all of those things, and she had never generated a penny in income. Now, what I told her is I said, I want you to close your computer down, and I want you to go down to the local Starbucks or coffee house and spend the day talking to people. You're way more likely to engage with an actual prospective customer by talking to people than just by sending out one more Facebook update or updating your website. I mean, those things are fine, but those are just kind of tools to get you positioned. That's not really a business. And what I want people to avoid is thinking they're in business when all they're doing is just continuing to gather new knowledge. Gather new knowledge is fine. Got another guy that I talked to recently who has gone to a whole lot of seminars in this last year, seminars and conferences, has read a whole lot of books, but again, has yet to engage with a customer to create that first dollar. So be realistic about what you're doing. Sometimes we can kind of hide behind the fact that we're gathering knowledge, tricking ourselves into thinking that we're building a business when we're not. There's no execution. We have to move from gathering knowledge, understanding, and application or execution. Those are the critical elements. It's only when you're generating dollars that you're in business. Everything prior to that is just getting ready, but not really in business at all. The other trap that people can get stuck in is the third thing on here where I have 4 hours working directly with clients. Now, this is something that even really competent people often get stuck in. Let's say that you are going to have a landscaping business. And so you jump right in. Boy, there's customers waiting for you out there, and you're spending 45 hours a week digging with your shovel, planting things, mulching, setting up irrigation systems. You're doing the business. That sounds wonderful, but you can't build a business in doing that. You'll get stuck in what will be a roller coaster process in your business where it's feast or famine. Now, we had an event here this last weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a lady, again, very high-level professional lady, very competent, talked to me about the coaching consulting that she's doing and how blessed she was to have so many people coming her way asking for help. And she's totally booked in what she's doing. But she said she has this kind of nagging feeling that she's not really doing some of the things she thought she was going to be, like writing, blogging, maybe creating an ebook, maybe ultimately a course or a traditional book. And I said, you're right. You're preventing yourself from growing a business. You've just created a job for yourself in that you're trading time for money. You're creating linear income where you simply do the work once, get paid once. Again, very honorable, but you're not really growing a business. You've just replaced a traditional job with a job that you've created on your own, where people pay you for your time, you get paid, and it's finished. You trap yourself at the bottom if you're working, as admirable as it sounds, to have lots of customers. I said, you have to say no to customers. And in using this model, so let's say that we are working with 4 hours out of 15 where you are actually working with clients. So that's 30%. Well, what that means if you ramp the hours up, let's say that you go to full time. So you've got 40 hours to devote to this. My recommendation is, if you're a coach, as an example, is that you still only spend 30% of your time actually seeing clients. That means if you are seeing clients 12 hours a week, I consider that full time, because you need to be devoting time to these other 3 areas. You need to continue reading, studying, gather new knowledge. You need to continue creating new content, things that may not make you money today but could make you a whole lot of money 2 years from now or 18 months from now. You need to continue marketing efforts. That's the way you grow a business in a linear fashion, where it continues to grow on the upswing, where you don't have that start-stop kind of feature that you'll do if you're too busy actually doing the work. What you're doing if you're too busy doing the work itself is you get trapped in what Michael Gerber in his books, The E-Myth, talks about as a technician. You come in as a technician, and that's all you know how to do is you just work as a technician. But growing a business involves a whole lot of other things. So what we're talking about here is actually how to grow a business. If we go on down in the document that I've got up on the screen there then and look at, okay, what about the next 6 months? Yeah, it should change in the next 6 months where it changes somewhat, where out of even the, I need to change, I need to change a percentage there of working directly with clients, because I've now allowed that if you're doing something like coaching as an example, you can go up to 8 hours where you are working directly with clients. So that's really about at 50% of your time, which would really be a heavy percentage of doing that, but still reduce the time spent creating new content and reading, studying, learning. I still have those 3 hours out of the 15 devoted to marketing efforts to build your brand and reputation. But that's how you can you can grow your business significantly and continue to do so by devoting time to these 4 different areas. Now I'm going to go back. I want to go back here and stop sharing so I can actually see questions coming in. So this is a place where if you have any kind of questions here, just click on the chat at the bottom of your screen. It says chat, and you can type in there any kind of question that you want. We can see, you can even go farther than that if you want to. You can raise your hand. I mean, you can raise your hand and let Brian and me know that you've got a question. We could even theoretically bring him right into the conversation, can't we, Brian?
I love it. Yeah, that would be cool. If somebody has a live question, we're happy to have you share your screen. In order to get prepared for that, 2 things I recommend real quick. Number 1 is that you have headphones so that we can hear you, or you have some sort of microphone plugged in your computer. And then number 2, just be aware that we would actually see you on screen. So if you want us to see you on screen. I've done webinars before and somebody went on screen and they're like, "Oh wait, you can see me?" So
yes, indeed.
Dan, I love your model. This is really powerful. I think, especially as we know a lot of members of 48 Days Eagles are not yet full-time entrepreneurs, that this is a really great model to follow. So if you guys have specific questions about that model, we'd love to answer those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The technology keeps changing. I mean, Zoom has some brand new updated features that I'm still trying to figure out here that make things on the screen a little bit different. But I love the fact that we can do it like this, where it's real-time connection, and everybody needs to know this is not some recorded webinar you're watching here. This is just Brian and me talking real time on the last Monday of the first day of the month. Can you believe the first month of the year is over tomorrow? Over. We're into the second month of a brand new year, and it seems like just boom, yesterday we flipped into the new year.
Wow. Well, Dan,
Right.
I know that a big thing that you do is you have your annual goals that you set. Right. It's 48 days before the end of the year. You have all your goals set for the new year. So
On November 14th.
I love it. So do you have, what do you do now that January is ending? Do you have a way of sort of going back and seeing where you are with your goals for the new year?
Yes, I do. I mean, that means that I already ought to be at 1/12 of the accomplishment of those goals. And some of the ones we had set out were really heavily weighted toward the beginning of the year. So yeah, now I've got a month already where I can look back and see exactly what's happening. I listened to a podcast this morning. It was Ken Coleman, who does the EntreLeadership podcast for Dave Ramsey's organization, interviewing David Allen, who wrote the book Getting Things Done. But I love David's talking about how we move things from just ideas to reality. A lot of entrepreneurs, and boy, have I been guilty of this, they use their head as an office. Now think about this a minute. He says your head is not an office. It's just a place to start with ideas, but it doesn't really become real until you get it down on paper. So you get it down with some kind of a plan to execute. I'm always working on that because I have so many things in my head, but I realize that's a really sloppy way to run a business where it's just all in my head. I mean, I'm talking about even things like, there are passwords that people don't know except me, and it's in my head. All those things. But the more I can get it down on paper, the more real it becomes. So that's what I do with goals, is get it down on paper, then it becomes more real. So here at the beginning of the year, we went through a real strategic overview, Brian, as you know, of our business just recently, looking at the organizational chart, who needs to do what. But in that, we also are working in 12-week segments. That's kind of new for me. I've always looked at like a year, and a consultant that I'm working with right now in my business says that's too long. We need to back it up and look at the 12 weeks at a time. So we can do 12 weeks and then do that, 4 times, and we're golden. So we spent some time this morning doing that, going through what do I need to do in the next 12 weeks? And then we back it down. What do I need to do this month, this week? What do I need to do today? And as I commit to those things, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I told him I would have this completed this week. So I'm really big, even as an entrepreneur, where nobody's looking over my shoulder telling me what to do, having clear goals and having timelines for their accomplishment.
That's good. We've got a quiet crew today. I know one thing that
we can see you out there. There's a whole bunch of you.
That's right.
Surely you have questions.
Dan, I know that the difference between lead indicators and lag indicators, the idea that, are you familiar with this concept, right? Like we can take action that will lead to results, but we can't necessarily dictate what those results are, but what we can do is we can create, one thing that I found inspiring from you is that you have really consistent routines. And so each and every week you have, you're consistently recording your podcast on Wednesdays. You're consistently putting out your newsletter on Fridays. And that's what you can control. And I think what happens sometimes, especially as we're getting started, is we actually try to measure the lag indicators. We try to measure readership or podcast downloads. Can you talk a little bit about, that kind of difference of the actions that we take that results in the actions, as opposed to as opposed to measuring the things that we can't control? Because I think measuring what we can't control can sometimes get really frustrating, especially when we're just getting started out.
Yeah, it can. And there are a lot of things that I don't even try to measure. I mean, and we can really get caught up in this. And it tickles me when I hear people talk about, their subscriber list or their Facebook friends or their, whatever. People exaggerate so blatantly. In the podcast space, I can go look at what my downloads are. Nobody else can. I mean, that's one of those that's kind of hidden. And when I hear people share about their numbers, I'm thinking, okay, are you talking? There are some people who share their podcast numbers in terms of from day one. How many people have downloaded from day one? Well, I've been doing this a very long time. I mean, that number would be pretty impressive, but what does that mean when it's from day one? But I like to really look at unique monthly downloads. So that's a number that I'll go look at once in a while. But I don't pay much attention to numbers. I mean, Gary, it's Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss, who said recently, the best SEO, we get caught up in how do we measure, how do we push, how do we use the right keywords and all of that, search engine optimization. He says the best SEO is great content. A lot of things that I do, I couch in terms of just like that. I just create what I hope is good content and trust the numbers to kind of play out. Now, the numbers I do watch, of course, are actual product purchases, people who attend our events, people who are signing up for Coaching Mastery, people who are getting involved in 48 Days Eagles. I mean, you and I look at those numbers. I mean, those are tangible numbers that we are paying attention to. One of the things that I wanted to do at the beginning of this year, we just have launched new ways for people to get involved in presenting the 48 Days to the Work You Love seminar. Well, I wanted to have 50 new facilitators on board in January. We aren't going to hit that. But a lot of it is because it was only this last Friday that I really announced that they were available. So we were almost a month behind the announcing of that, just getting pieces in place, working with Dr. Terry Hadaway, getting all the pieces in place and the options available. So, I mean, there's nobody to blame. Am I disappointed? Yeah. Do I think that that really shows that we aren't on the right track? No, not at all, because our letting people know about it was 30 days behind when I thought it was going to be.
All right, we got a number of questions here. We've got them. If you guys could put them in the chat, that'd be great. I do have a few that were already in the Q&A, which we'll be able to grab as well. Peter was asking, have you seen a difference? So he's talking about the 15 hours a week that you dedicated. And he's really asking, like, if it's spread, have you seen a difference with the 15 hours if it's spread out over 7 days or 5 days or 2 days? Is there any kind of, if he has 15 hours period, what's the best way to sort of schedule those out?
Yeah, great question. I know what would work for me. The reason that I'm able to keep a high level of productivity is because I work in focused, uninterrupted blocks of time. I don't do well at all grabbing 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. I could have something where I spend 15 hours in the course of a week kind of addressing it and never really get much done at all. So my preference is going to be like in 2 days. If you could do it in 2 days, that would be my preference. Rather than spreading it over, if we spread it over 7 days, that's a couple hours a day. I think that's tough to do. It indicates there's a lot going on. I think it's hard to just switch gears. I like to work personally in 3 and 4 hour blocks. So if that were the case here, that would mean that I'd find 4 times during the week to spend 3 or 4 hours. That would work best for me. You know, it goes back to one of the books that really impacted me heavily this last year was Deep Work, Cal Newport's book. And he talks about how distracted we tend to be. When we know that it takes about 18 minutes to get back to the level of work we were doing after an interruption. And then we think about, there are a lot of people who go through a week without having any 18-minute segment where they don't have an interruption. Meaning somebody texts you, a tweet comes in, a Facebook update, an email, the phone rings, somebody walks in your office. I mean, there's some people that don't go 18 minutes ever without an interruption. To me, that's really challenging to do anything meaningful.
Wow.
So I'm going to be looking for those times where I have long blocks of time. And I would rather, if you have the option, that you book your 15 hours into 2 days rather than a little bit over the course of 7 days.
That's good. Spencer's asking about becoming a 48 Days seminar facilitator. You want to talk about that real quick?
Sure. Let me grab a link here.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I could even pull that up. Maybe that'd be
great.
A reasonable way to do this. Let me just do that. Let me pull it up on the screen. I'll share it, and we'll just walk through it real quickly. If you go to 48days.com/learn, it's our entire online training section. So I'll put the link over here.
I've got it in the chat.
Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, thanks. Okay.
Yep.
So there, but if I share my screen so you can see what I've got here, I'll show you what we've got. So if you go to 48days.com/learn, there we've got a little video where I'm talking about how to lead the seminars. And then if I go to, I'm ready to lead a seminar, we go to the next page, and here we've got seminar packages laid out. You're ready to lead your own 48-day seminar. And we have 3 different options on this. Are you seeing that? Do I need to expand?
You have to share your screen. I'm not seeing it.
I have to share. Okay.
Yeah.
Hang on here. Let's see.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Are you seeing the 3 different options? Okay. All right. So 3 different options. We've got one just as a volunteer. A lot of people want to do that. They're not interested in making money, but they want to share the message in their church or community. So we've got that. Then we've got a 48 days facilitator where somebody that's looking to make an extra $1,000 a month will walk you right through exactly how to do that. Now, the seminar is set up so that it's 6 sessions, 2 hours each, where you're going through 2 of the chapters in the 48 Days book each time. So it keeps it within 48 days, the overall process. But it's totally online. Everything is in video form, and it's not just me standing in front of a camera. And this is where online learning has changed dramatically. And Brian, you're really invested in this space. But I see things that are online training, and it's a single fixed video camera at the back of the room. Somebody walks up to a podium and talks for 45 minutes. That's not online training that's going to keep people's attention. The next best thing that a lot of people are doing, people like, my friends, Mike Hyatt, Ray Edwards, they talk over PowerPoint. So you see a screen with some bullet points and they talk over that. But much elevated beyond that is where there's a more interactive process. So in the 48 Days seminar here, I'll come on. There are 48 videos that I've done in this, but they're short. The shortest one is about 3 minutes. The longest is about 6 minutes. But I'll come on and talk about some principles. Then we'll have bullet points come up on the screen. Then we may have a 4-minute time frame where the video keeps running. There's a countdown on the clock where participants can just answer the questions, respond to those things. Then it moves them on through. So it's very interactive, but very engaging in terms of keeping the people involved. I'm really thrilled with what we've got. And it is the cutting edge kind of version of what online training ought to be. So we've got the volunteer option, the facilitator option, and then what we call the business partner option. This is for somebody who seriously wants to make this an income stream, a serious income stream, and we walk you through how to do that. With that, you get 10 of the participant kits and a bonus one. You get a 30-minute session with me to actually build your business plan, 50% discount for any events at the sanctuary for the next 12 months, a promotion on our sites for any of your upcoming seminars. Top leaders will be featured on the 40 Days podcast, and it goes on and on and on from there. And then down at the bottom, after you have purchased 100 kits, and now that, we have churches that order that as their initial order, 100. But after you purchase 100 kits at your wholesale price, then you get one of the exact bronze replicas of Athena, the eagle that I have outside my office here. And when we say a kit, the kits are $67 a piece. We insist that nobody prices the workshop at less than $99. I mean, we want to protect the validity of people who are doing this in seminars. We actually suggest a pricing per individual of $297. But it will help you with depending on what your setting is. There are people that are going to do it in churches. We've got a church that's charging $169 for participants. That's fine. So they added $100 on. That gives them a little margin. They can scholarship somebody if they want to. And at the same time, we've got people who are using this as part of a small group coaching where they may say, it may not be fitting for you to spend $4,500 for my individual coaching, but I've got a 48 days small group coaching process coming up. 85% of that is going to address exactly what you need to go through, and it's only going to be $897 you go through with 9 other people. So that's a very legitimate way to do it as well. Anyway, that's just that's our overview, but any of you can find that if you just go to 48days.com/learn. Got all the details there, and I'm happy to address any other questions you got about that.
Awesome. Okay, Teresa was asking, so how do you feel about the difference between the 12-week goal plan and the early plan? I'm trying to learn to work in quarterly goals instead of, I think she meant yearly. 12-week goal plan instead of yearly plan.
I was going to say, I'm not familiar with the early plan.
It says early, but I think she meant yearly. Because she says, I'm trying to learn to work in quarterly goals instead of yearly. Have you tried that personally? Well, you kind of addressed it a little bit, right? You have your 12-week goals.
I've always done yearly. I like a year. A year goes by in the blink of an eye. I actually work in 3-year planning stages. I want to have a clear 3-year plan. That means that every year then I'm rolling ahead. So I always have at least 3 years out that I'm seeing. That kind of is my attention span, for one thing. Joanne, my wife, still calls me a 3-year man. She knows that unless things change, I'm going to get bored. No matter what the level of success is, I need change. But I'm real comfortable with a year. This idea of working 12 years, I'm doing it because my business coach has asked me to do it. It's new for me. I'm not that familiar with it, so I don't have a lot of experience to tell you about yet on that. I'm a 1 year man. I like that. I think that's a short enough time to, when we look at how fast that goes by, evidenced by the fact that we're already on next to the last day of the first month of the brand new year. I mean, people are still confused right in 2017 when they're writing the date because they're still thinking 2016.
So true. Have you read a 12-week year? I might have missed that part if you addressed that already.
I have it here in my desk. It's next on my list.
I love it.
I read 2 books yesterday that I was waiting to get to. One is Giftology. It's John Ruhlin's book on how to give gifts well, and it's just delightful. I'm so excited about it. I read sections aloud to Joanne, but it's, everybody sends gifts at Christmas time, and they're always the same thing. How do you stand out? Well, he encourages you not to send gifts at Christmas time, but other times of the year, so it surprises people. And then personalized gifts, not gifts with your own company logo on it, but things that are meaningful to the recipient. Anyway, so I read that book, and then I read Executing Grace, Shane Claiborne's new book. Shane's going to be here at Lipscomb doing a presentation a week from Wednesday night that we're going to go to, and I wanted to read his new book, so I read that. But next on my list is the 12-week plan book.
Yeah,
I'll get to that.
I read that over the summer, and it really changed the way that we I structure my week, and then how I measure my goals. And my wife Julie just finished it the other night and totally changed the way that she does her planning, especially as a stay-at-home mom who might have 2 hours a day to herself, maybe. So if you haven't read a 12-week year, I highly recommend it for those that are listening along. It's really good. But essentially, the premise is he talks about that urgency that you have at the end of the year, and then also the excitement you have at the beginning of the year to set big goals, and the urgency at the end of the year to finish big goals. And so why not take that over 12 months and squish it down to 12 weeks? And then that way you get that 4 times a year instead of once a year. So it's just more of a mindset shift than anything, but it's definitely worth the read.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a question. I see a question in here from Kathy. Kathy says, in March of 2016, I bought your seminar participant kit partner package for $797. Is this still valid? Which current category do I fit in? Yes, it is very much still valid. We had about 94 people who did what you did, Kathy. And here's the deal. I just showed you 3 options on our screen. If you go to 48days.com/learn, you'll see those 3 options. One at $297, one at $597, and one at $1497. We are upgrading anybody who got that participant partner package with us last year to the highest level, just automatically. No money. You're upgraded to the $1597 level that now includes a 30-minute session with me, includes 50% off here. It includes a whole bunch of other bonuses. Yes, because you took a chance on us before we really had everything totally fleshed out. We're going to upgrade you to everything. And I'll have an email going out to you that you'll be getting this week that clarifies that's cool. That. That's brand new. I love your question. Give me a chance to, yes.
David's wishing he signed up in the spring now.
Yeah.
Right. A couple more questions here. So Dave says that he finally met with 4 different people this past week to discuss speaking opportunities so I can get in front of potential coaching clients that he's excited about finally taking action. So just a kind of a more of a celebrating a win of getting
Dave Wadsworth. Okay, I just see who that is. Yeah, awesome, Dave. Cool.
Yeah, there's nothing like getting feedback from people and getting in front of them and making that connection.
Well, and that's something that I really promote is what Dave is talking about here. Dave is in our Coaching Mastery program, to discuss speaking opportunities. We've got a lady in our Coaching Mastery program. Her name is Michelle, just a real sweetheart, but she's not an extrovert. She's not a go-getter. And I said, if we can get you in front of groups, people hear you, they're going to want to be coaching clients of yours. Well, she has done that in just a remarkable way. Rotary Club, the Lions Club, blah, blah, blah. She uses moldable clay as where everybody in the room gets a little thing of clay, talks about how, how we make ourselves. She's got a real cute kind of demonstration of that. She has never presented in a short presentation like you do at luncheon where you may have 22 minutes. She's never presented without on the spot signing up coaching clients. It's a great way to get coaching clients. And I commend you on doing that, Dave. Awesome.
Love it. All right. Somebody asked, how do you solidify routines in a constantly shifting environment with someone who struggles with routines?
Wow. Oh my gosh. How do you solidify routines in a constantly shifting environment with somebody who struggles with routines? Okay. I love the question because I'm somebody who, I'll tell you what, let me just go ahead here to a month. I'll tell you what, let me just use February of this year. So we're just ending January. Now I'm going to share this just to make a point. This is my schedule. Now you'll see that you can look at the last Friday of the month and you can see exactly what I'm going to be doing. So that's a long time out. But there are so many things that I know I need to do that we repeat every week. Mm-hmm. So I create that routine for myself because I know that left to myself, I just be following the squeaky wheel. And I'd look back at the week and say, well, gee, I know I was busy, but did I really do anything? The way that I keep productivity high is by deciding in advance how my time is going to be spent. So this is kind of like my buddy Dave Ramsey talks about money. If you have $168, you decide in advance where those are going to be. Don't just put it in your pocket and then, walk through Walmart and see what gets your attention. You're in trouble if you do that. Decide in advance. That's the way you get ahead financially. And I do exactly the same thing with those 168 hours that we have every week. I decide in advance. So I know that on Mondays, I've got meetings like this. Team meetings, all business meetings are on Monday. Monday afternoons after 3 o'clock. Now we're going to be, we end here at 3 o'clock, and 3 o'clock to 6:30, I reserve for doing book forwards and endorsements. That's there every week. It's been there for years. That's what I do in that period of time. On Tuesday mornings, Ryan, you and I start off right off the bat with a call, an hour that you and I spend together working on things related to 48 Days Eagles. And then I have my coaching mastery call, my mastermind call. I've got a lot of my personal coaching sessions are all on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I do my podcast in the morning. Wednesday afternoon, I'm available for interviews. I usually have 4 or 5 interviews on Wednesday afternoons. That's the only time I'm available for interviews. I mean, it just doesn't work. I just don't have availability any other time. And then Thursday and Friday are deep work. Thursday and Friday are the days where I really go deep on projects. That's where I can then create a new course or a new ebook. We've got publishers that are holding their hand out saying, Dan, when's that next manuscript coming? I'm getting on it. But that's when I do things that may not have any kind of financial payoff this year. But they're things that could have a major place in income next year or the year following that. But I create those routines because left to myself, it would not look like that. But I can go to the 4th Thursday of October this year and tell you exactly what I'm going to be doing that day. Now, saying that, I'm not a robot. Obviously, there's room for unexpected things. I allow for about 15% of my time for the unexpected things. Now, that could be an opportunity from Nightingale Conant, to come to Chicago and create a new product. Or it could be a granddaughter walking in my office. But there's going to be flex time in my schedule, about 15%.
That's good. I think getting to that heart of that question of, constantly changing environment, Dan, you've been able to create your own environment. So so for those that are still in a job where they can't, what do they do?
Well, I have to get past the word can't first,
Yep.
because because we all get up every morning with a whole lot of choices to be made. So if you feel trapped, it really limits your options. Recognizing that you've got choices, but what I like to do is decide, where do I want to be a year from now? Or in your example, we could say, where do you want to be 12 weeks from now? If that's a more reasonable kind of time frame. Where do you want to be 12 weeks from now? But I like to look a year out, and then I back into knowing where I want to be a year from now. What has to happen this month, this week, and today? So I back into it like that to know exactly what I'm going to be doing. But if you have, there are people who approach me, Brian, who say, gee, I really want to start this business. They describe their schedule to me, and I say, I don't see how that's possible. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, you don't have any margin in your life at all. It requires margin. If you are busy 168 hours a week and things that you consider important, your life is going to continue just as it is. So it's only as you get motivated enough to say, okay, I want some different results, but then you have to find 10 to 15 hours a week to make that happen. But what I often do with people who consider themselves to be very busy is to do a 2-week time catalog where they document every 15 minutes what they're doing for 2 weeks. I had an anesthesiologist a couple years ago that I worked with. He was making $750,000 a year, very, very busy, but decided he just wanted to walk away from that because it was just sucking the life out of him. He didn't want to do that anymore. Well, I had him do that. Document how you're spending your time. We found that he was spending an inordinate amount of time doing things that he could easily delegate. Getting the boat out of the water for the winter, going to pick up the dry cleaning. All those kind of things. We brought on a personal assistant for him and offloaded about 20 hours a week of things that he had been doing himself. And all of a sudden, he got the joy back in doing the work that he was doing, as well as found that he had margin to do things that he did consider to be important, but he thought he didn't have time to do.
That's good.
So it says, when do you review your upcoming week's activities to be prepared for them without feeling caught off guard? I review a lot. Again, I work from my calendar daily, so I'm seeing things that I have scheduled for the entire month every time I go to that Google Calendar. Then I click on the day. But I do spend a couple hours a week. And what I tend to do is late in the week, at the end of the week, review what's coming up. I don't want to go through the weekend kind of not knowing what's going to hit me and then feel like I'm behind when Monday morning comes. So I usually do that on Friday afternoon. Just a quick review, 30 minutes, but to review what's coming up. So I have it planted in my mind. Then I go into the weekend really unplugged, having fun with the family, grandkids and all that. But I know exactly what's going to happen Monday morning. There's no surprises because I've reviewed it. Now, some people do that on Saturday or Sunday or on Monday morning. I don't want to have things crowd over into Saturday or Sunday. It's easy to justify that because it's not really working. It's just planning. But to me, that's still in the same bucket.
That's right.
If I'm unplugged on Saturday, if I'm spending time reviewing my schedule, it's the same as if I'm working.
Right.
And I really do try to unplug for those 2 days. So I do it late in the week, usually on Friday. Any other questions here we didn't hit?
Good. I think that's all we've got right now. I love how you unplug, just kind of piggybacking off what you just said. I've really tried to follow that, in a lot of ways based on what I've seen you be able to do. So just encouragement to you guys, Dan Miller unplugs on Saturdays and Sundays. Every once in a while there's something that happens on a Saturday, but we don't send emails on Sundays. You don't, right? You don't check emails. Do you even open your computer on a Sunday?
Typically not.
Yep.
Yeah. Typically not. Yeah. I love to read, relax. Joanna and I love our Sabbath days together, but it's sure not, firing through emails. And even like in the 48 Days Eagles, if people put things in there, they're going to see the delay because I'm typically not in there at all.
That's so good. Well, thanks so much for sharing your calendar with us. Anything else you had to add?
This week, my personal mastermind was here, so they were here Thursday night, all day Friday, and then Saturday is just open time in the morning. We don't have any agenda, but it's just open time for networking. But I'll tell you what, by 11:30, we open Sanctuary here 8:30 to 11:30. 11:30, I was finished. I wanted people to move on. I didn't want to go to lunch with anybody because I really need Saturdays and Sundays to rejuvenate. I'm not looking for more social involvement, engagement, connection. I'm looking for quiet time, which solitude is restorative for me. I know that's not true for everybody, but I really need that time. The reason we do our events always on Thursdays and Fridays, Coaching with Excellence, Innovate, whatever, Thursdays, Fridays, is so I have Saturdays and Sundays free. It'd be easy to push those to the weekend in that they didn't take up work week time. I don't want to do that. That's part of work, and I want to preserve the sanctity of Saturday and Sunday being restoration days. Peter says to both of you, how often do you spend time without your phone on you? Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I've discovered the magic of airport mode. So, in my business, we do a lot of webinars. And so I actually have a slide in the webinar. Well, Dan, you see when I teach at Coaching with Excellence, there's a slide that says, turn off your distractions. And I literally tell everybody, take out your phone, slide it up from the bottom and click on the airport button so that you are fully 100% there. And I have learned to do that. I follow something called the Pomodoro technique, which is basically, I do it 25 minutes. So 25-minute increments. I have a little gadget, I think they call it, in your taskbar on your Mac, and it's a little tomato, and you click it and it counts down 25 minutes. And I've learned to also do that for my phone, where I'll hit airport mode for 25 minutes and I'll work on whatever's in front of me for 25 minutes. So it's kind of a trick answer to your question, Peter. I probably do it about 6 times a day, that I will be completely inaccessible from my phone for 25 minutes about 6 times a day. So on average, about an hour and a half, give or take, a day. You can't get me on text, but you can get me 26 minutes later. So
yeah, my phone is not a primary component of my business. When I'm in my office, I've got 2 screens here. I'm fully engaged, and when I'm communicating, this is how I do it. But my phone, really, I still see as more just a personal tool. I mean, my kids, grandkids, wife, Joanne's been calling me while we've been on here. Nobody else. I mean, that's not a number that I promote. That's not readily accessible. I hate messaging. So it's not a big deal for me to have my phone, because if I have it with me on the weekends and get something, it's probably from a family member. Rarely is it going to be from anybody else. But it's not a big interference, because actually on my phone, I play word games with my grandkids. I've got a grandson who's going to college in Colorado, and we have an ongoing Upwards game all the time. We're playing. So I see that pop up and I engage with him. But my phone is much more, my phone is 95% just personal and 5% business. It's not a primary tool in my business at all. I just never allowed that, or never made that switch, I guess. All right.
Well, a lot of great tips today. Dan, thanks so much for sharing your wisdom and insight with us.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for being here, Brian. Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us here. And feel free to be shooting questions up in the forum areas, in 48 Days Eagles, on our Facebook group. Just let us know how we can help keep moving you along toward the success that you want and deserve.
Awesome. Take care, everybody. Thanks.